You didn't stumble here. Something precise and ancient has been guiding your steps, and it chose this exact moment to bring you to these words. As you listen, notice the subtle electricity under your skin, the way your breath gathers itself, the way your attention sharpens without effort. That is not coincidence. That is recognition. A hidden door within you has just clicked open, and on the other side is a version of your life that once felt unreachable, waiting for your consent to begin. You have felt flashes of this before, those strange seconds when time slowed, when a thought became reality too quickly to be called luck, when a dream announced itself in the language of repeating signs, and then the old noise returned and told you to forget. But you did not forget completely. Some wiser part of you kept watch, memorized the feeling, and led you here to remember on purpose. If you let it, this very moment becomes the hinge that turns your story, not because I promise you fireworks or an escape from being human, but because you are about to discover what being fully human actually means. Awareness choosing its world instead of sleep inheriting one. There is a field beneath your circumstances, alive, responsive, shaping itself around the signal you broadcast with your attention and feeling. Most people brush against it accidentally, call it chance, and keep walking. You are not most people. You paused. You listened. You felt the quiet yes rising in your chest before your mind could explain it. That quiet yes is the key. Speak it with me now, not as a comment on a screen, but as a vow from your deeper self. I accept. Let those two words settle in your bones like a new gravity. I accept the awakening already moving through me. I accept the responsibility and the relief of becoming the observer who chooses, rather than the reactor who repeats. I accept that what I have been calling fate was often just focus, and that I can focus differently, starting now. As this acceptance takes root, your nervous system begins to untangle from old alarms. The past loosens its grip. The future stops shouting. You start to feel something steadier than certainty. Coherence, the sensation of your mind, heart, and body aligning around a single truth. I am aware, and my awareness creates. From here, fear loses its authority. Pain becomes information. Patterns that felt permanent reveal their seams. The point is not to deny what hurts or pretend life is simple. The point is to stand where you can see both the storm and the sky that holds it, and to remember you are made of the sky. If this resonates in that quiet room behind your ribs, honor it. Type the words I accept below as a seal on what you just felt. A small action that tells the field, I'm here, I'm ready. And if you want to keep walking this path with a community that practices, not just ponders, tap subscribe now. It's a simple yes that keeps this frequency in your life and brings you the next steps exactly when you'll need them. Breathe once more. The door is open. Step through with me. You have felt it in fragments. How a thought becomes a pattern. How attention becomes a path. How one small choice alters the temperature of an entire day. The mind calls it coincidence and moves on. The body knows better. Beneath every moment runs a living current, a responsiveness that meets you at the exact depth you bring to it. When your breath turns steady and your gaze softens, that current rises to meet you. When your chest tightens and you brace against what might go wrong, the same current coils into a mirror and quietly returns what you are rehearsing. This is not reward or punishment. It is the simplest law of a responsive universe. Where you look with feeling, reality gathers. Think of the last time the world seemed to lean toward you, the conversation that opened a door you hadn't dared to knock on, the chance meeting that spoke to a prayer you never voiced aloud, the number, the name, the line of a song that arrived at the exact second your courage was about to thin. Those were not random comforts tossed from a distant sky. They were confirmations from a field that knows you by the signal you emit. The more you recognize them, the more they multiply. Not because the universe suddenly favors you, but because you have learned to hear your own life speaking in its native tongue. And yet, old habits of attention can be stubborn. The mind prefers the familiar even when the familiar is small. It will try to drag you back into loops where you argue with what is, where you collect proof that you are late or lacking, where you narrate the same old ending before the middle has even begun. When you notice this, do not fight it. Witness it. The moment you witness instead of wrestle, you step from the role of actor improvising the same scene into the role of author choosing the next line. The sensation is unmistakable. Space opens around the thought, light returns to the breath, and an option that wasn't there a heartbeat ago appears as if it had been waiting just out of frame. This is where the shift becomes practical. You are not asked to deny your circumstances or paste optimism over grief. You are invited to stand 1 inch deeper than the surface, in the place where feeling chooses its direction before words arrive. In that inch, you can let the body remember what trust feels like without needing the world to behave first. In that inch, you can allow gratitude to precede the proof, not as performance but as alignment, the way a tuning fork hums before an instrument joins it. From there, the day moves differently. The right sentence finds your mouth. The call you were postponing takes 5 gentle minutes instead of 30 guarded ones. The person who never seemed to hear you hears you, because you are speaking from the self who needed no defense. If doubt rises, and it will, because you are human, treat it as weather, not climate. Let it pass through without building a house under its clouds. You are not failing when you feel afraid. You are simply being asked to decide which voice gets your vote. With practice, the vote is cast earlier and with less drama. You begin to recognize the texture of coherence the way a sailor recognizes wind. Invisible, but unmistakable in the way it fills the sails of an ordinary hour and carries you farther than effort ever did. What changes first is subtle. The tone of your thoughts softens. The pace of your reaction slows. The body unclenches in places you didn't realize were working overtime to keep you safe. Then the external follows with embarrassing obedience. Solutions arrive that would have looked like miracles if you'd been watching from your old vantage point. You will be tempted to call it luck. Smile if you like, but remember, the field did not discover you today. It has been answering the true you all along. Today you answered back. Some of what you call you is a costume you were handed before you could speak. It was tailored by loving parents and hurried teachers, by praise you wanted to keep and disapproval you learned to avoid, by a culture that trades certainty for wonder and noise for depth. None of this made you weak. It made you workable. But the moment arrives, perhaps it is this moment, when the costume grows too tight across the shoulders of your becoming. You stop mistaking the stitching for skin. You reach for the zipper. Unlearning is not demolition. It is a gentle archaeology, the careful brushing away of dust from a face you have always known. Begin with the smallest honesty. Most of your reactions are rehearsals. You've practiced the same interpretation so faithfully that they feel inevitable, as if life arrives pre-labeled before it reaches your hands. Watch what your mind writes in the margins of each encounter. Notice how quickly it picks a villain, a deadline, a conclusion. Then pause long enough to ask the question that undoes the spell. What else could this be? The moment you ask it, the floor opens and fresh air rushes in. New meanings line up like birds on a wire, and one of them will carry you where the old story never could. Your body holds the oldest chapters. It remembers every time you had to make yourself smaller to fit a room. Every time you learned it was safer to leave a part of you at the door. It also remembers what is true. Place a hand on your chest when you speak your day's intention and listen to the subtle shifts. How the breath deepens when a sentence belongs to you. How it snags when you try to sell yourself an old script. This is not mysticism. It is fidelity to your own signals. Keep choosing the lines that let your ribs widen. Let your nervous system become the instrument you tune before you play. Do not fight the world to prove your freedom. A mind at war with the program remains bound to it by opposition. Step sideways instead. Replace argument with attention. Replace vigilance with presence. When fear starts listing its evidence, meet it with one embodied fact. You are here breathing, able to decide where to place your gaze next. The program cannot follow you into that room. It needs your past to survive. You are choosing a living present. As the costume loosens, your days stop feeling like corridors and start feeling like coastline. Options ripple at the edge of your awareness and your job becomes blessedly simple. Follow the clean feeling. It is the sensation of alignment that requires less bracing and more belonging. It's the phone call you no longer dread, the project that organizes itself when you show up unarmed, the conversation that ends without a winner because no one was losing. Where there is ease without laziness, responsibility without heaviness, clarity without cruelty, walk there. That is the terrain of your original self. There will be relapses into the old language. Expect them and refuse to make them sacred. The day you forget and overreact. The hour you spiral into a future that hasn't asked to be lived. The minute you believe the critic who only speaks in ultimatums. Bless the evidence, then return to what works. Pick one true sensory anchor. The cool rim of the glass in your palm. The warmth where your feet meet the floor. the rhythm of your breathing as it evens out under your own attention. From that anchor, rewrite the next sentence of the moment. Not a grand vow, just the next sentence. Reality is astonishingly obedient when you speak to it from where you actually stand. What emerges is not a louder person. It is a clearer signal. People will notice without knowing why. Rooms will feel different because you brought a different gravity. Opportunities that used to require your chasing will begin to recognize you by your coherence and step into your path at human speed, which is to say, right on time. You will not need to pretend certainty. Your presence will carry its own quiet proof. And when someone asks what changed, you will shrug in a way that isn't evasive but free. You will say, I stopped arguing with my life and started listening to it. You will say, I let go of what I learned to be and made room for who I am. You will say nothing at all and pour tea while the afternoon light makes a cathedral on the table, and that will be answer enough. There is a place beneath your thoughts where the world becomes simple again. Not empty, simple. The way a lake grows clear when the wind relents. You have touched this place 1,000 times without naming it. The breath that lengthens when dawn first opens the curtains. The hush that arrives between the last word and the first sip. The way time loosens its grip when you look into a sky that is older than every worry you carry. Stillness is not an escape from life. It is the room where life remembers how to speak to you. Begin where you are with the raw material of a single inhale. Let it arrive without management. Feel how your ribs widen as if they have been waiting for permission. On the exhale, release the sentence your mind was about to finish. You do not need to defeat your thoughts. You only need to stop volunteering for their rehearsals. In that small refusal, the floor of your awareness lowers by one quiet stare. Then another. Then another. Soon you are standing at the level where the air is kinder. Here the body stops behaving like a courthouse and becomes an instrument again. Sensation is music. Weight in the feet, warmth in the palms, the soft drum at the center of your chest. If a worry insists, let it. Feel where it lands. Throat, belly, shoulders. And widen the room around that place by 2 breaths. The signal you send is simple and absolute. Everything inside me is allowed to be here. Paradoxically, what is allowed loosens. Tension unclenches without argument. The mind, no longer deputized as your jailer, takes off its badge and sits beside you like a friend who has been working too hard. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is movement without friction. From here, choices stop scraping. The next right action does not arrive as a command but as a clean inclination. A reach for water, a text that wants to be sent, a line in your work that asks to be written now rather than later. Coherence gathers. Your attention, once scattered across a dozen small emergencies, becomes a single stream with enough momentum to turn the wheel of your day. This is the quiet technology. Breath organizes the body steadies the mind clarifies the field, and reality answers to clarity. You will discover that silence speaks in textures. Some truths feel cool and spacious, like stepping into shade on a summer street. Others arrive warm and heavy, the kind of gravity that says not yet or not this. Trust the textures. They are the alphabet your deeper knowing uses when it is tired of being outvoted by habit. When you honor them, time reorganizes. The email finds you instead of being chased. The conversation lands without the old defensive choreography. The thing you were forcing stops needing force because you finally met it at its own speed. You do not need an hour to touch this state. You need a doorway you can carry. 3 breaths before you answer. 1 hand to the heart before you agree. A glance at the sky before you believe the story in your head. These are not rituals of superstition. They are switches. Each one returns you to the control room where your focus is chosen rather than stolen. From that room, you remember what the quantum scientists and the mystics have been trying to tell us with different metaphors. The way you look at a thing changes the thing. Stillness is how you polish the lens until what you see is no longer distorted by panic. Expect the world to test your new quiet. Alarms will ring. Old patterns will stage a reunion tour. Let them. You will feel the tug and in the same instant the option. Instead of being dragged, you watch. Instead of rushing, you locate your feet. Instead of answering the loudest voice, you wait for the truest one. This is not laziness. It is precision. And precision repeated becomes power. There comes a morning when you wake before the alarm and realize the first thought is not a demand but a welcome. You rise without bracing. The mirror shows a face that has stopped negotiating its right to be here. Outside, a bird repeats a melody older than every problem on your to-do list, And for a long, forgiving moment, you remember that your life is not a series of fires to put out, but a hearth to tend. You add a stick of attention to the flame and watch the room fill with a warmth no argument can produce. This is the work. This is the way. Every day begins with a small vote. Where will you place your gaze? Most mornings, the mind rushes ahead and chooses for you, toward the email that can't wait, the memory that still stings, the problem rehearsed so often it has become a hymn. But attention is not a spotlight you're condemned to hold. It is a living instrument that learns whatever you teach it. When you train it gently, consistently, it becomes precise enough to carve a new path through habits that once felt like bedrock. Start with the simplest material. What is here, now? The taste of water touching your tongue, the weight of your body in the chair, the low hum in the room you usually ignore. As you rest your gaze on what is undeniably present, your nervous system hears a new instruction. We are safe enough to perceive clearly. The static lowers. Options appear that were invisible behind the noise. This is not distraction. It is calibration. The world has not changed. Your way of meeting it has. Then choose a single object that matters today. Not 10, not 5, 1. Let your attention lay its full weight there, the way sunlight leans through a window and warms a single patch of floor. Keep returning when the old gravity tugs you sideways. Each return is a stitch in a stronger fabric. You are building a continuity of focus that reality recognizes. The field you live in answers coherence with coherence. Doors open at the exact pressure of your steadiness. You will notice how stories try to hijack your gaze. The mind loves a familiar ache. It knows how to hold it and call it truth. When the old story rises, no one listens, it never works, I always fail. Observe it the way you would watch weather crossing a hill. Do not argue and do not sign the petition. Offer it a breath, then redirect your light to what you are choosing. Attention is not a courtroom. It is a kiln. Whatever you keep inside, it takes shape. There is a tenderness to this discipline. It is not clenched jaw and white knuckles. It is the calm insistence of a river choosing its own bed. Some days you will drift. Good. Notice the drift sooner. Guide yourself back sooner. Let small victories count for more than perfect performances. Precision grows out of kindness far faster than it grows out of punishment, and a kind focus stays. As this practice ripens, the world around you begins to move differently. Conversations land on the first try. Work that used to cost you an afternoon costs you an hour. People you once chased begin to find you. It looks like coincidence to everyone else, but you will recognize the choreography. You chose the music, and the room responded. Attention is not merely how you see, it is how you say yes, and every sustained yes becomes a door that would not open for any amount of effort without it. Tonight, when the day exhales and the lamps go soft, give your focus a closing shape. Name one thing you did that aligned with who you are becoming. Let your eyes rest there until the picture grows warm. Sleep inside that image so the body can memorize it. In the morning, wake into the same choice. In time, this is how a life turns. Not by grand declarations shouted into the wind, but by a steady beam of looking that teaches reality what to become when it stands in front of you. There is a difference between knowing and being, the way there is a difference between reading sheet music and letting the song live in your hands. Coherence begins when the mind, the heart, and the body stop arguing about what matters and start moving in one direction. You feel it as ease that doesn't depend on circumstances, as a clear interior line that holds steady while the day changes its weather. Decisions stop sounding like coin tosses. They reveal themselves as the next true step, already warm to the touch. To live in coherence is to let your interior frequency lead. You speak from the same place you breathe from. You choose food, company, and work that keep the signal clean. You stop bargaining with what drains you just because it is familiar. You notice how the smallest betrayals of yourself echo for hours, and you are gentler with the cause instead of angry at the echo. The world will still make requests that pull at your attention, but you answer from center. A simple no becomes a shelter. A measured yes becomes a promise you can keep. Practice this in ordinary moments. Walk at the pace that allows you to feel your feet meet the ground. Answer a message only when your breath is slow enough to hear what you mean. Eat until the body says enough, and trust that whisper more than the plate. Let your posture tell the truth before your mouth does. Shoulders lower, jaw unlocked, gaze soft but direct. The body is an honest instrument. When you align it, the rest follows more willingly than you expect. Coherence does not mean perfection. It means recovery, returning to alignment more quickly each time you wobble. You will wobble. That's how balance is learned. When you catch yourself in old reflexes, over-explaining, apologizing for your needs, sprinting past your limits, pause as if you've met a friend in the hallway. Greet the habit, thank it for trying to keep you safe, and walk past it into the room where the windows are open. The air is better there. Your voice is clearer there. As days gather, coherence becomes visible in your atmosphere. People feel steadier in your presence and don't know why. Work arrives that fits the shape of your gifts. Timing begins to cooperate. You didn't chase any of this. You tuned yourself and life harmonized. This is not superstition. It is hygiene at the level of energy, the quiet maintenance of the signal by which you orient. And when storms come as they do, your house does not forget its foundation. You may bend, you do not break. You return to center and the world remembers how to meet you there. Purpose stops being a riddle the moment you let it live in your body. It is not hiding in the future, waiting at the end of a plan. It is the way you move through the hallway, the care you place into a sentence, the presence you bring to a task no one will ever applaud. When you are finally quiet enough to hear it, purpose doesn't shout instructions, it hums under everything. A steady note that turns ordinary moments into instruments. You don't have to invent it, you have to allow it. It is already woven into your preferences, your patterns of attention, the specific compassion that rises in you when a certain kind of ache walks into the room. Begin with what your hands already know. Notice the work that leaves you more honest than it found you. The conversations that make time loosen its grip. The problems that call you not because they are glamorous but because something in you can't leave them unsolved. Purpose is less a job title than a way of tending the world. You might write or teach, build or heal, design or repair. But beneath the role is the same vow. To meet reality with the fullness of your awareness and let usefulness be the shape your love takes. As coherence gathers, service becomes a natural extension of your interior order. You are not rescuing anyone, and you are not proving your worth. You are letting the overflow find its path. People will feel helped simply because you are not secretly asking them to validate you. Your yes will be clean enough to nourish, and your no will be kind enough to clarify. You will give without depletion because you are no longer spending energy pretending to be someone else. The gift arrives without the noise that used to travel with it. There will be days when the path looks narrow and your effort feels larger than the outcome. Stay with the simple faith of good craftsmanship. Lay the next true brick, even if no one is watching. Purpose respects rhythm more than spectacle. It matures in seasons, not in moments, and what looks like delay is often ripening just out of sight. Trust the slow intelligence of your practice. Trust the way right doors open when your presence is precise and your motives are light. In time, you will recognize that the life you are living is the message you are trying to write. Your boundaries will teach as clearly as your words. Your laughter will make more room than your arguments ever did. The places you refuse to abandon in yourself will become shelter for others. This is embodied purpose, not an announcement but an atmosphere. You walk in and the room remembers what matters. You leave and the order remains. There comes a moment on every true path where the teachings stop sounding like ideas and begin feeling like gravity. The mind no longer tries to remember what to do. The body already knows. The breath slows of its own accord. The shoulders settle. The gaze softens, and you can feel the quiet architecture of a new life assembling itself beneath the surface. This moment is not theatrical. It rarely arrives with trumpets or lightning. It announces itself the way dawn does, first as a paler shade of darkness, then as a color you can't quite name, then as a steady radiance that makes everything visible. What you are approaching now is not merely another concept to hold. It is the lived experience of moving through the world as coherence itself. And once you taste it, you no longer ask whether the quantum field responds to you. You recognize that you are the field noticing itself, shaping itself, guiding itself toward the highest pattern available in every breath. Begin by remembering that you are never separate from the intelligence that moves oceans and spins galaxies. Separation was a learning lens, a necessary narrowing that sharpened your focus until you could see your power without being blinded by it. You put on a small name, a small history, a small set of possibilities, and you called it me. Not because you were limited, but because you were training to carry more. The old identity was scaffolding. It kept you upright while foundations set and deeper structures cured. Now the scaffolding is coming down. It can feel exposed at first, as if the wind could reach you more directly or the sun could warm you more quickly. But the truth is, you are standing inside a house you helped design. Walls aligned to the light, doors hinged toward possibility, windows placed to catch the exact direction of grace. This is what coherent living feels like. Not a fight with circumstances, but a faithful conversation with them. Not a struggle to control outcomes, but a steady commitment to broadcast the frequency that makes the finest outcomes inevitable. There will be days when nothing around you seems to confirm what you know within. Do not mistrust those days. They are calibration days, not verdicts. Imagine you are a musician tuning an instrument in a room where others are still speaking loudly. At first you can barely hear your note over the noise, but as you keep sounding it, the room begins to organize around your tone. Voices lower. Attention gathers. The chord finds you. Reality works the same way. Your signal precedes your evidence. If you abandon your tone every time the room is noisy, you will keep inheriting the chaos you do not want. But if you return to your note with patience, the world will find its pitch to meet you. This is not stubbornness. It is stewardship. You are tending a frequency that will feed many. As this steadiness deepens, the familiar tyranny of hurry loosens its grip. Time, which once felt like a hallway chasing you from behind, becomes a courtyard that opens in front of you. Choices come without the old panic because you are no longer choosing from fear of loss. You are selecting from the abundance of what already exists in the field. Notice the difference in your body when you act from that place. The breath is cooperative rather than shallow. The jaw unclenches. The stomach settles. The mind does not race ahead to narrate disaster scenarios because it can feel the continuous support that arrives when you are aligned with the larger pattern. You take the call that feels warm, rather than the one that feels urgent. You answer the message when your presence is whole, instead of when your anxiety demands relief. You move because the path is whispering yes, not because the past is shouting now. This is not laziness or passivity. It is precision. You are learning the language of right timing, the choreography of consequence you do not have to force. Old patterns will still knock. Let them knock. You do not have to open the door. The habit of self-argument, proving, defending, rehearsing imagined conversations dissolves not because you won the debate, but because you walked out of the courtroom. The habit of catastrophizing, building elaborate altars to everything that could go wrong, loses power not because you found the perfect counterthought, but because your nervous system learned how safety feels and refuses to be hired as fear's stenographer. Even pain changes its accent. It speaks less like a threat and more like a tutor. Here is a place that needs your breath. Here is a belief that wants releasing. Here is a boundary that must be blessed with clarity. What used to read as punishment reveals itself as information. What used to feel like exile becomes apprenticeship. The same heat that once burned you now tempers you. And the tools you forge in that heat, discernment, patience, compassionate refusal, elegant yes, become instruments you can place in other hands when they are ready. You will notice, too, that relationships begin to reorganize around your coherence. Not everyone will understand it. Not everyone needs to. Your task is not to convert the resistant or convince the suspicious. Your task is to keep radiating a field in which honesty feels safe and presence feels possible. Some connections will intensify, not because you doubled your effort to keep them alive, but because shared purpose made its own gravity. Other connections will loosen, not as a punishment or an indictment, but as a kindness. Threads returning to the weave where they belong. When someone cannot stay, bless them as they go. When someone arrives with the same song in their chest, sing together without trying to own the music. The most radiant unions are not contracts of control. They are agreements of coherence. You stand in your sky and I stand in mine. And together we make a weather that grows what we both love to see. As your inner climate stabilizes, creativity stops behaving like a guest and starts behaving like a resident. Ideas you used to chase now find you while you are washing dishes, walking between rooms, pausing at a window. Solutions arrive without the old strain because your system is no longer broadcasting emergency. It is broadcasting welcome. When your field says there is room here, the quantum delivers furniture worthy of the space. You will write differently. You will speak with weight rather than volume. You will build quietly in ways that echo loudly. You will notice that the best sentences come when you stop trying to impress and start trying to bless. You will see that the best plans reveal themselves when you make your peace more important than your timelines. This is not mystical escapism. It is craftsmanship at the level of vibration. You are apprenticing yourself to elegance, and elegance has rules. Remove what is not essential. Place each element with care. Let form serve function and function serve love. There will also be invitations that look like shortcuts. Be gentle and firm with them. The field does not honor manipulation, even when dressed as speed. If an opportunity requires you to abandon your integrity to claim it, it is not an opportunity. It is a test. If a conversation requires you to betray your knowing to keep it comfortable, it is not a conversation. It is a costume. The universe is not withholding from you when such things fall away. It is protecting a frequency in you that will purchase what no compromise can afford. You are not becoming difficult. You are becoming exact. Precision is kindness to your future. Notice the body again. In this new way of living, the body is not an obstacle to transcend but an instrument to be tuned. You will learn the signatures of alignment, warmth in the chest, a sense of spaciousness behind the eyes, breath that moves like a tide with no quarrel against the shore. You will learn the signatures of misalignment, a clench at the solar plexus, speed that feels like being pulled rather than invited, a smallness behind the sternum, as if the room shrank around you. Trust these meters. They are not superstitions. They are your built-in physics, the sensors through which consciousness reads its own weather. When the storm rises, you do not curse the sky. You adjust your sails. When the calm opens, you do not demand wind. You unfurl and glide. Mastery looks like this: fewer arguments with what is, more artistry with what could be. As coherence accumulates, gratitude stops being a checklist and becomes your native atmosphere. You will find yourself thanking the unseen for its tireless orchestration. You will thank the earlier version of you for enduring long enough to deliver you here. You will even thank the friction that once blistered your hands because you can feel the calluses that now allow you to carry fire without dropping it. Gratitude is not naivete. It is recognition. It names the pattern so the pattern can strengthen. It names the giver so the gift can keep flowing. And the more you give thanks, the more your attention lifts from what is missing to what is multiplying. This is also the hour to understand service in a new way. You are not here to save anyone. You are here to stay so deeply aligned that your very presence becomes a corridor others can walk through. You will speak when words carry medicine and keep silence when silence carries mercy. You will offer what you have without offering what you are not. You will refuse the counterfeit nobility of self-erasure. The field does not require martyrdom. It requires musicians who can hold a note long enough for choirs to gather around it. When your frequency steadies, people whose songs were nearly swallowed by noise will find their pitch beside you. This is how collective shifts begin, not with grand speeches but with 1,000 steady notes sustained by those who remember what they're playing for.
There is a point in every journey when the map is no longer ahead of you but within you. You began with a suspicion that life was larger than it looked. Followed the thread of awareness through the weave of programming. Learn to still the noise, to observe without drowning, to tune your field until reality answered in kind. Then you crossed the subtle threshold where knowledge became embodiment and the world without growing louder grew more honest. This is where you now stand, not at the end of a teaching, but at the beginning of a life lived as coherence. Look at what has already changed. The same morning light arrives, yet you meet it with a steadier breath. The same conversations occur, yet you hear beneath them a quieter music. The same decisions present themselves, yet your choosing no longer tastes of panic. You are no longer trying to force the river to remember its way to the sea. You are becoming the river clearer when still, stronger when moving, always in conversation with gravity and moon. And when an old current tugs at your ankles, you do not curse it as failure. You feel the pull, soften your knees, widen your attention, and choose again. Choice used to sound like struggle. Now it sounds like a bell. You have watched fear try every costume in its closet urgency. Cynicism, certainty in the worst outcome, and you have learned to greet each disguise with the courtesy of a witness. This courtesy is not weakness. It is mastery. You have learned that the field cannot be bullied, only befriended. That control is a poor substitute for clarity. That the most efficient path is the one aligned with what is true, not merely what is fast. You have felt the difference in your bones between momentum you manufacture and momentum that meets you like a tailwind. One depletes, the other completes. Perhaps the most sacred shift is the one that cannot be posted or praised, the quiet reordering of your inner weather. You carry more spring in your chest and less winter in your jaw. You forgive more swiftly, not to erase accountability, but to release entanglement. You bless your boundaries, not to build walls, but to garden light. You listen for the right time to speak, and when it arrives, your words land with the kind of weight that makes rooms fall still. This is how the world begins to trust you, because it can feel that you trust yourself. It would be easy to declare this the destination and call the work complete. But coherence is a devotion, not a diploma. The field keeps offering you greater fidelity, finer instruments, deeper quiet. Each day arrives as a ceremony disguised as simple hours, an inbox that can be answered as noise or as opportunity, a body that can be ignored as transport or honored as oracle, a passing stranger who can be dismissed as background or met as a mirror. You will not ace every ceremony. You will forget. You will hurry. You will believe the old story for half an afternoon. And then you will remember sooner. You will return faster. You will choose gentler. The path will not shorten. Your stride will lengthen. Carry this knowing. Your coherence is never just your own. Every time you refuse the gravity of panic and choose presence, you alter the mathematics of the room. Every time you tune your attention from scarcity to signal, you strengthen a frequency others can find when their hands are shaking. Every time you choose integrity over immediacy, you widen a corridor through which solutions travel. The world does not need you to be perfect. It needs you to be tuned. In a culture addicted to volume, coherence is rebellion. In an era infatuated with speed, stillness is strategy. So let this be your closing practice and your opening pledge. When you wake, place a hand on your chest and remember who is breathing whom. The field issuing itself as you, the universe practicing your exact shape. When you step into conversations, bring an attention that makes honesty feel safe. When you plan, design for elegance rather than excess. Let what is essential speak clearly, and let what is loving lead. When fear arrives, and it will treat it as weather, note the direction of the wind, secure what matters, and wait 5 minutes longer than you used to before deciding what is true. When joy arrives, and it will stay 1 breath longer than you used to before reaching for the next task. Let gratitude finish its sentence. If you doubt, look for the simple evidence, the synchronicities that thread your days like bright stitches. The way your body tells you yes with warmth and no with tightness. The increasing ease with which you leave rooms that require you to abandon yourself in order to stay. If you crave proof, remember that the observer effect never stopped at the laboratory door. Your focus is your architecture. Your feeling is your mortar. Your actions are the beams that make shelter for others. And when the old world calls you back promising safety in exchange for your smallness, smile with the mercy of someone who no longer negotiates with ceilings. You are not obligated to perform collapse just because collapse is familiar. You are not required to explain coherence to those committed to chaos. You are free to be the quietest revolution in the room, a human being whose presence makes better futures plausible. Walk on. Then, without theatrics, without apology, without the brittle armor of needing to be understood. Walk as the field walking itself. Let your days become a library of demonstrations. Fewer arguments, more art. Fewer reactions, more replies. Fewer bargains with fear, more agreements with truth. Let your work carry the weight of a bell struck once and heard for miles. Let your rest be an act of governance, a leader tending the state of their own sky. And whenever you wonder whether any of this matters, stand where the light is clean, lay a palm over your heart, and listen. The drum you hear is older than your name. and younger than your next breath. It keeps one rhythm. Remember, remember, remember. Remember, you are not here to control the river. You are here to be its clarity. The map has served you. Fold it gently. Place it in your pocket. Step forward and let the path rise to meet your feet.